All right, folks, you asked for it, and here it is. Judd Zulgad returns to the podcast. Judd, I was reminded by a good friend of ours, Courtney Cronin, today, that I have been now covering the Vikings for exactly on this date, 9 years. It was 9 years ago that I was unpacking my stuff out in an apartment in Burnsville when I got a text from a friend of mine who said, "Didn't you just move to Minnesota? What's going on with Teddy Bridgewater?" And I was like, "I have no idea what you're talking about. I've spent the whole day moving, getting in this apartment. Like, what do you mean?" And I opened up Twitter and I saw our friend Ben Gessling tweeting that there was an ambulance and that Teddy Bridgewater was being taken off the field. And I'm like, what the heck just happened? What did I just walk into? And then 2 days later, you and I are at US Bank Stadium watching Rams and Vikings preseason action as CJ Ham was going off down below us. We're talking with Spielman. We're dealing with breaking news. I was out at the fair with Patrick Royce.
That was one day later.
Right. When they traded for Sam Bradford. Then, right.
Yeah,
I mean,
it was one day after that, yeah.
What a circus. What a way to be introduced to Minnesota Vikings football, eh?
Well, so you're going to be at 10 years next season. That's absolutely incredible. And your life is never the same. Not once you start to cover. So how long was Courtney on the beat with us? 6 years?
That would have been 2017 was her first year.
Okay, yeah, that's right.
2021, because in 22 she left to go cover the Bears and she did not cover Kevin O'Connell. She only had the pleasure of covering the crazy Mike Zimmer years. And the wildest one, I think 16 has a great argument for it, but the wildest one was probably 21, because how often do the head coach and the quarterback end up at odds over a major political issue, we'll call it. I mean, that was pretty insane. But my first year, Judd, I mean, not only did Teddy get hurt, Sam Bradford comes in, goes 5-0, but Mike Zimmer suffers the eye injury. The protester hangs from the roof. Every game came down to the last second. Blair Walsh got cut in the middle of the season. I mean, it was one thing after the next. And I will say this, Judd, had I not had a veteran of the game, Mr. Zulgad, alongside of me, I would have lost my mind with everything, because that was my first year covering the NFL. I have been covering hockey, which can get a little weird, but nothing like
that.
The week to week of the National Football League. So I will always appreciate having you along my side of me for that year.
Well, you're very welcome. And, just remember, I brought the 2010 experience, which nothing could top. So anything that we saw, I'd be like, I sort of seen that. But the Vikings, I give them credit. You're right. 16 did test us. 16 did, as far as I recall, things going wrong. The COVID year was weird because it was just some odd stuff, like you said, with Kirk. And then it turned out, and I do love the fact that we found out at some point around that time period is when Spielman and Zimmer quit talking entirely. I mean, my God, we could go through the amount of things, but just know this, 9 years in, you think you've seen it all. You hope you're right.
I'm not right. I know I'm not right in thinking that I've seen it all. So I'm always prepared to wake up and look at my phone and go, Norv quit this morning? What in the world is going on?
And Mike might have punched him, but maybe he didn't punch him. But the rumor is going to live for, perpetuity that Mike punched him. And oh my God. Yeah.
I have had enough people say that there wasn't a punch thrown that I guess I have to believe it, but I don't know. Maybe I'll forever, until Mike says that nobody punched everybody, then we're going to leave that one out there. But let's talk about 2025, Judd.
Yes.
Here's what I love about your breadth of knowledge of the Minnesota Vikings and Minnesota sports. This is quite a fascinating time for Minnesota Vikings fans, because they have not had this. And, I talk about showing up when Teddy was here and then not after the knee injury. But when I got the job from 1500 ESPN, one of the conversations that I had with yourself and whoever else was interviewing me at the time is what a cool time to come cover the Minnesota Vikings, because they've got this young franchise quarterback. They had come so close to winning a playoff game. It was a team on the rise. Their Super Bowl expectations were starting to get kicked around. And since then, it has been a couple of quarterbacks that you never would have expected. Sam Darnold, Case Keenum, Sam Bradford, getting them to 5-0, and then having that great game in 2017. And then the Kirk era, which just became this middle ground of it's okay, but it's not actually good, and it's more dramatic than it needs to be, and it's more expensive. This
Right.
purgatory that was always filled with ups and downs, but never really got you anywhere. It feels like they've kind of gone back in time to when Teddy was first arriving, and there was this interest and intrigue of the unknown that
Mhm.
we are about to go into with JJ McCarthy.
It's unbelievable. First of all, what type of roster one can build when the quarterback does not cost a ton. Like that's the thing is it keeps coming back to that. But yeah, you know what's funny is like this season, it's a first year starting quarterback, but I don't think there's anybody in their right mind who thinks the expectations aren't high. Now I know nationally there's a very, well, they might win 8 games. And I think that what people think the Lions are better, the Packers, uh, I still see way too much Chicago excitement, which I don't even agree with. But anyway, long story short, I think the expectations internally are enormous. And when you build a defense that's, not young, but you build the interior of the defense now with Javon Hargrave and Jonathan Allen, and then you build the interior of the offensive line finally, like for the first time since I've known you, I think it's really built out. I mean, it's been a while. And then you go get a running back who can score in the red zone in Jordan Mason. You know, for all those who say, well, if something happens to McCarthy, they're dead, or McCarthy, I don't know about that. I can tell you that's not the expectation internally. The expectation internally is they're going to win. Now, do I think McCarthy's going to have to Joe Montana them or carry them by himself? Absolutely not. But after going to training camp, I think we both agree that there's some pretty high hopes there, and it's going to be very disappointing if it's like, well, McCarthy played okay and they won, take your pick, 8 games.
If they do okay and win 8 games with the amount of money that's been
Yeah.
invested, and even most recently in Adam Thielen, bringing him back to town. I know they're reworking his contract, according to our friend Kevin Seifert, but still, that's some more dollars that you can never, ever say that the Wilfs are a cheap ownership.
Mm.
I don't think anybody said that before, but you really can't say it after this offseason. The amount of cash that was invested, we always focus on cap hits because that's what matters most, but the actual cash is a kind of crazy amount. So they really are pushing all the chips to the middle of the table around JJ McCarthy, which is something that I haven't been afraid of because of the recent success of young quarterbacks in the NFL. I mean, you see that a guy like Jalen Hurts a couple years ago was a third-year starter. Brock Purdy was a second-year starter. I think it was Jared Goff's third year where he went to the Super Bowl, and his second year where he led the number one offense in the NFL with the Los Angeles Rams in 2017. Carson Wentz is here. Well, I seem to remember a 2017 roster that was so good in Philadelphia that it could crush the Minnesota Vikings with Nick Foles at the helm. And Carson Wentz was only in his second year when he went 11-2 as the starter for the Philadelphia Eagles. Now, some of those quarterbacks did have previous experience, but still, McCarthy had everything behind the scenes, everything with the offense, everything from day one of OTAs. He is the guy all the way through. Everything is laid out for them to be a legitimate contender. But here's what I want to get into is the details with you, Judd, because there's only so many humans who feel like they know what JJ McCarthy actually looks like. And that's why when I hear some of the national dialogue, it's sort of funny. It's like you and I have watched 40 practices of JJ McCarthy, whereas the outside world has watched 2 preseason games. So you wrote down through training camp, and I respect the heck out of you for doing this, every single pass that JJ McCarthy threw.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the details of what JJ McCarthy actually looks like on the practice field. I want to begin with the accuracy discussion because the way that I was charting it and the way that I was viewing it throughout the summer was some routes and some passes for him are extremely comfortable and
Mhm.
extremely consistent, and other ones aren't. And I think it's Kevin O'Connell's job to lean into the ones that are and avoid the ones that aren't. Because right now, I don't think that he makes every single throw in the book. I also don't know that a lot of quarterbacks actually do. So, what was your takeaway on the accuracy conversation about McCarthy after this summer. Look, guys, I am just about at the age where I'm starting to notice that hairline fading a little bit. So if you're struggling with the same problem, allow me to make a suggestion. Give Hims a try. Try Hims Hair Loss Solutions, and you'll be joining the hundreds of thousands of subscribers who found their hair again. Hims provides you with a convenient, quality access to a range of hair loss treatments that work, all from the comfort of your couch. Just answer a few questions, and a medical provider will determine if treatment is right for you. And if prescribed, your treatment is sent directly to you with no shipping cost. The process is simple, 100% online, and there are no uncomfortable doctor visits. No insurance is needed, and one low price covers everything from treatments to your ongoing care. Hims has hundreds of thousands of trusted subscribers, and they can help you get your confidence back with visibly thicker and fuller hair. Start your online visit today at hims.com/purple insider. That's HIMS.com/purple insider for your personalized hair loss treatment options. hims.com/purple insider. Results vary based on studies of topical and oral minoxidil and finasteride. Prescription products require an online consultation with healthcare provider and will determine if a prescription is appropriate. Restrictions apply. See website for details and important safety information.
Well, first of all, and I've been saying this, and we saw this from the first day he played here, is the arm strength is really good. So like
Yes.
the whole thing about his arm strength was nonsense. I don't
You told him
understand where
that.
it came from. Well, I said, I see some problems with your game, dude, but not that. And he's like, I don't know. But I mean, seriously, because it was like a huge knock. But yeah, so, and I do think he worked on this in camp. So I'm curious to see how this evolves, because he's still at what, 22. So like he's evolving. But, we talked about the layered throws a lot of times weren't great. He would try to drive the ball through guys instead of over guys. And of course, in college football, you could probably do that, or it's incomplete. In the NFL, it gets picked off and goes the other way. I do think he's going to throw some pick sixes because of that. But I saw development. I saw growth. You know what else I saw? So it's a small thing, but I think it actually might become, and this is partially because the offensive line should be improved, but it's also because of the touch of the quarterback. I think the screen game. I think he throws a nice screen pass. And it's funny, the Vikings for years, the screen pass worked. And when the screen pass works, Matt, you're just like, of course it works. It's the easiest play in the book. Look, you're just lobbing the ball to the guy, and the guy runs, and he gets 20 yards. And then you see it, and, Kevin O'Connell, right? 22, 23, 24. It doesn't work. And you're like, oh my God, this is ugly. Like, what's wrong? And I never thought that, and I don't know if can be statistically backed up by this. I never thought that Cousins looked incredibly comfortable in the screen game. The offensive line certainly did not. So like when I see the screen game with McCarthy, I thought that's not bad. I think he throws a pretty damn good deep ball, not as good as Darnold. He sometimes can air the ball out a little too much. I mean, that was Darnold's strength though. The one thing that I'm really curious about with Justin is going to be that 20-yard over the middle route or 15-yarder. Now, Darnold had the arm for it, but didn't throw it great. He didn't have the touch. And that's the one when push comes to shove in games, I'm really curious because McCarthy has the arm. But you know what? Sometimes that throw, and it's so weird because there's just like this much margin for error. Sometimes that throw is a little bit behind a guy. Sometimes that throw is a little bit in front of, and it's got to be at the right place at the exact right time. So, I mean, I think it's fair to say this. McCarthy, I think, has a lot of upside. I like a lot of his throws. He is a work in progress. But that's where O'Connell comes in. In fairness, too, Vikings fans for years, the last really good offensive coach that this team had was probably Dennis Green. And O'Connell's been known for being very good. But you know what? This one is on him a lot, I think. Like, Kirk, he helped Kirk improve. Now, Kirk was a statistical monster basically the whole time. But Kirk won games because of Kevin, I thought. And then Sam Darnold is case in point, like the poster child, right? But this one to me, like when people are like, well, McCarthy has to do this or that, I don't disagree with that. But this is also Kevin. And I keep saying this. I think the referendum on Kevin O'Connell for 2025 is not, can he work with a quarterback? I think he's answered that question. I think the referendum is Kevin O'Connell's a play caller. I think that's going to be the key thing. Can he stick to the run? Can he, because, he has always, and I think it's tough in games, right? You're calling plays, and what do? You revert to what you know, and he knows the pass. He wants to pass, but they have a run game now. And so I really think where Kevin O'Connell's going to have the biggest impact on JJ is not the teaching. I think he can do that. I think it's in game Sunday afternoon, 2:45 p.m. crunch time. What do you call? Because if you dial up the wrong thing, you could be setting the kid up to fail.
What's so interesting about that with the O'Connell part and the play calling is at the very beginning of the game, this team is awesome. And at the very end of the game, this team is awesome
Yeah,
most of the time, not against the Rams in the playoffs, but most of the time.
sure.
And it's really that third quarter, sometimes the late second quarter. Can you put a team away? And even he made in training camp crack about how, well, it feels like we always end up with these close games at the end. And it's sort of like, if we could only find the person responsible for that. But I also think that the people responsible for that, in part, were the fat guys in the middle that just weren't good enough
Mhm.
over the last, as you mentioned, number of years. And where I will give Kevin O'Connell some plausible deniability, not all, but some, is that would you feel like you could pound a team's face in if you were running behind Ed Ingram, Dalton Reisner, Garrett Bradbury, Blake Brandel? I mean, these are guys, when you look at the data on how good of run blockers they are, even Bradbury, I think, was above average at one time. I'm not sure that he was after in that outside zone scheme after they stopped doing that with Gary Kubiak. I'm not sure he's been an above average run blocker. That it's in his skill set, but it's not really in the numbers where it shines. It's more of mid with a different type of run scheme. So now you have Will Fries, who's a very good run blocker. I think Donovan Jackson, that was his strength in camp. Where that goes, pass protection wise, it's going to have some bumps along the way. Ryan Kelly should be fine. Their tackles are phenomenal and their running backs are phenomenal. We were both wowed by Jordan Mason during training camp. I mean, he was, I think, one of the biggest stars of training camp. Their run game looked really effective. So if it's succeeding and
Yes.
then you're not leaning on it, then I think that that's an
Right.
issue. But just going back to McCarthy and the accuracy, what I saw from him that I liked was that when he ran stuff like play action and he could get in a rhythm where he could roll out, fake the handoff, set his feet, find a guy, bang. I thought that he was very successful in throwing those types of routes, especially ones that were coming over the middle. When it was a straight drop back with a lot of chaos, and we saw a lot of chaos from Jonathan Grenard specifically, a
Mhm.
lot of chaos, and maybe the feet get a little bit, or maybe the timing gets a little bit. That's where that touch, that natural touch
Yep.
that some of the freaky, accurate passers in history, it doesn't change at all. Where I thought that it did for McCarthy, and there were a few times where it just flew over someone's head by 15 feet, and we don't really know why. Kind of like, I know you're not a big golfer, but I'm a big golfer where I might be having a great round and then just hit one, just blade one and roll it along the ground and go, why did I do that? Oh, I know. It's because I play golf once a week. So, and I think that there is some element of that with JJ McCarthy, where didn't throw a lot of passes in college,
Yep.
didn't throw a lot of passes last year, and where you saw training camp that impressed me, Judd, was as it went along, more and more rust came off, more and more
Yep.
refinement was happening. And when we got to the joint practice, he looked like a pro starting quarterback who was accurate enough. And the other part of it, too, I'm curious what your take on this. I think that his athleticism is going to shine when he gets in real games. That Sam Darnold could scramble and did it occasionally. I think JJ McCarthy likes to run.
Yeah.
And I think that that's going to be a legitimate problem for defenses, especially on third down, that he's quick and he's going to make plays with his legs.
That brings up a really interesting point because it looked like in practice, and I don't blame them because he's wearing a red jersey. He can't be hit, but they definitely wanted the quarterbacks to hang in the pocket and make throws. And he got uncomfortable at times, as most would. But there were a few times, and we also saw this on fourth down in the preseason game he played against Houston, where he scrambled for a first down. And that's what I agree with you completely. I think there's a thought process of, well, he's coming off a meniscus injury. He's probably not going to run that much. First of all, he looked fine. When he did run, he looked fine. Second of all, I don't think you can take that, to go back to your golf game thing, I don't think you can take that club out of his bag. Like if he gets hurt, it's really unfortunate. He gets hurt, But if you like ground him and are like, no, no, dude, you can't run for this, you can't run for that. And when he took off against the Texans, I thought that was a very good sign. Like, that's the type of play it to me in the training camp practices, it felt like often didn't work for him. But in that Houston game where it's just a case of you got to do something, like it's a real game, he takes off, gets the first down, gets out of bounds. He's definitely the fleetest of foot, and this is sort of damning with faint praise. He's the fleetest of foot Vikings quarterback I've seen in a long time. Like, Darnold had more mobility to shuffle than Kirk. Kirk was a bad shuffler. If Kirk took off, he could run a little bit, but it was very plodding, I always thought. Darnold was more athletic. McCarthy's more athletic than that. And I also felt like when McCarthy did roll out at times, he looked more comfortable throwing. So, yeah, there were, to go back to the Houston game, and we saw this, I think we saw this pass get picked off in a training camp practice as well. It didn't get picked off in the Houston game, but that Lucky Jackson pass he threw, what was that? About 15 to 18 yards downfield, and it just sailed. If there had been a safety there, it gets picked off. That's the type of pass I'm like, okay, is that going to translate to what he's normally going to do, or is that a play where he's going to do something different? I will say that's a play that Jefferson, like that's a Jefferson staple play. That ball has to be brought down. So I think it's going to be really interesting to watch, but I think your run game prediction is 1,000% on. I think we're going to see a guy that uses his mobility. I also think he does have an ability to shuffle at times. Like, that was a thing that I always came back to with Kirk. He had no pocket presence. He couldn't feel it. And that's why you get sacked, right? Like, you watch the best ones. It's not that the quarterback goes 5 yards down, 5 yards towards the sideline. It's just a step or two, but it buys himself time. So I am very curious to see this, but I do think that also what this offense has in totality now, to your point, offensive line improved, run game improved. JJ McCarthy is not stepping into a job where it's, hey, kid, you have to carry us. It's, you got to be a big part of this, but we also gave you a lot of parts. This team has offensively and defensively, man. When's the last time you remember this many parts being added? Like, there is a world in which you could even win close games, low scoring games too, because this defense should be that good. So I am ordinarily, I'm a huge skeptic. I am pretty optimistic about things as long as they have health.
Well, and this does remind me, you talk about going back 10 years or whatever to 2017, that training camp. We did a lot of nitpicking about who was cornerback number 4 and whether Mackenzie Alexander took the next step and if Tashawn Bauer was flashing. And then, at the end of the day, it was the starters, it was the great players who made the difference. And that will be what happens here is the great players are going to decide games each week. And I think that they can outlast a lot of other teams because they simply have more good players than other teams do, that they don't have a glaring weakness to me. You can say, now when I say weakness, well, some people, well, what about cornerback depth? I'm not talking about depth. Right. I'm talking about the starting lineup of the Minnesota Vikings. Now that Thielen is here, I feel like that's pretty solidified. Also, long-term, it's 3 games. Addison will be back.
Yes.
Adding Thielen to that mix is even better because one of the weaknesses I thought was Jalen Naylor as a complete wide receiver. Well, there's kind of a balance there of the underneath and the deep now. I mean, it is, they're deep at running back. They're deep at tight end. They're like, there's a lot of D line. They were able to move on from Harrison Phillips because they have so much confidence in Jalen Redmond, Levi Drake, Rodriguez. It's a freakishly talented team. So I guess when it comes to JJ McCarthy, there's 2 things I think about with him. One is, how does he balance? I'm just curious to see, wanting to be a playmaker, because this was something I noticed in the practices. He wants to make a sidearm throw to the back of the end zone on the scramble. And I think what Kevin O'Connell was saying and Josh McCown was, look, live to play another day because look at the team around you. So where does that mentality fit? I think he can do that, but he seemed to struggle a little bit balancing that. Here's another thing I wanted to ask you about, Judd, because you and I have talked about this out at practice, but obviously not on any podcast form, is where do you think that the team is at in their feeling with JJ McCarthy versus all the noise that happened months ago? I don't know how exactly you processed all of that, but there has been definitely a difference of opinion between how sold the Minnesota Vikings were on with JJ McCarthy. Personally, I think that the proof is in the decision. that they decided with this stacked roster that they were going with him. Do they believe in him? Well, look at what they did. But what did you make of all that versus kind of where we stand right now?
Well, I think there's a lot of things here. First of all, Aaron Rodgers, if I'm right, called the Vikings. And he's like, I'm out here. Your team's good. And they talked about it. I don't really blame them. Like, they didn't invite. Now, if they thought it was going to stay quiet, they're fooling themselves. So I'm not saying that, oh, it should have stayed quiet, which is what I was told they would have liked. But of course they would have. Every team wants to keep its private business private. But I don't have a big problem with the discussion. Now, I didn't like the idea. I think he's a locker room problem now. I don't think he's worth. I don't. There was time he was the best QB in the league, and it was worth it. That's not the case now. But beyond that, I didn't. It's not to me like they're like JJ McCarthy can't play. And I just kept coming back to one thing. They took him. He's the first top 10 quarterback. I mean, this franchise has been around since 1961. He's the first top 10 pick as a quarterback, because Culpepper was 11 in 99. The franchise has ever made. And so, I thought if they had worked harder to hang on to Darnold, which they did not do, I would have been like, okay, you don't really trust this, because in my opinion, one of the great advantages that the Vikings have is a rookie contract. Like, that's part of the game here, right? Because if JJ McCarthy is really good, guess what? In 4 years, 5 years, he's going to cost a ton. And now you can't add Jonathan Allen and Javon Hargrave. But I didn't have a problem. I thought it was interesting, but it's not like I thought they don't trust him. And, they also gave him the keys to the car. Like, no matter what else they did, and they didn't bring in 5 guys. I actually it's funny. My bigger question, and now in retrospect, it's been quashed because of the events of recent days. My bigger question was the backup, because I never bought that Kevin O'Connell had any interest in Sam Howell. Was somebody else went and got him, and O'Connell's like, whatever, we've tried everything. Daniel Jones didn't want to come back. We couldn't get this guy. We couldn't get that guy off his couch. But I didn't have like some real struggle, like, oh, here go the Vikings again. And you've seen that. I mean, we both covered that, right? Where they sort of overthink things to the point of screwing themselves up. I didn't think that ever was close to happening. So I actually appreciated, hey, we'll kick the tires. Rodgers called us. My last thing too is, and I know I've had people disagree with me vehemently about this, but I don't think Kevin O'Connell likes to upset quarterbacks. So if Rodgers calls, do they entertain it? Partially because it's Aaron Rodgers and I'm his friend. Yes. There's people who still think they tried hard to keep Darnold and he left. Well, they made him a cursory offer, just like they did Kirk. They don't want to offend you, but that doesn't mean that they truly want you back. And I felt that there was enough of a flipping of the page to the JJ McCarthy era that it wasn't like they were about to go classic Vikings and screw this up.
I agree. And I think that all of it just making sense to exactly what we thought it was going to be, even if there were some, hey, what about this? I like to point this out that NFL teams employ a lot of people to have meetings about stuff, so they'll have meetings about stuff. What they should be concerned about is that they had people in their building telling reporters from the outside about their meetings that they're having, and they should wonder who's telling people about our meetings where we bring stuff up. I mean, I felt the same way about the Jefferson and Malik Neighbors thing. If you're in a meeting about the wide receiver, someone should say, hey, what if we traded Jefferson for Neighbors? And they should go, no. Okay, on to the next idea. You should say, what if we brought in Aaron Rodgers? You should do that. But then you don't expect that to end up in front page news after that. So they should be more concerned about that than, maybe some of the other things. I also think, too, that they wanted to see him in the first offseason workouts, see how the knee responded, see where the weight was,
Sure,
see how he was throwing the football, see how he led the team, where he was with the playbook. And they had time to do that. If he had gone out there and looked like Kellen Mond and looked lost and looked like he hadn't put the weight back on and everything in the OTAs, then they would have been in the right to say, Aaron, you better show up because we're in a little trouble here. So why not use the time that you have? None of this was abnormal to me. That's my thing.
right.
Is I'm not saying it didn't happen. I'm saying that none of it was weird. And yet it was kind of presented as, a conspiracy or kind of weird. That was a little bit weird to me. But versus now, this to me is what's happened all throughout camp is the best case scenario. The one injury that they had was Jalen Naylor hurt his wrist or hand or something. We're not sure about that. And then Rondale Moore, which I felt terrible about. I think
Yeah.
we all did.
Yeah.
But still, that was like wide receiver 4 or 5. It's now a healthy team with a quarterback who took every single rep, stayed healthy through every single rep, looked like by the time they finished joint practices, they were ready to go. I think this is exactly how they would have dreamed it up, that they're making a move at the last second to just help out JJ McCarthy a little more because they feel really good about it.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, the only thing that I can come up with as a Zulgadian point of concern is the punt returner does concern me. It actually
Now
does.
that is full Zulgad right
I mean,
there.
Miles Price, God bless him, but he bobbled the fair catch against the
He did.
Titans. I would just like Rondale Moore intrigued me because he's a veteran and he doesn't have a boatload of punt return experience, but he had enough where it's like I think he can just catch the ball. And I know that there was that they were charged with finding a Brandon Powell replacement who could get more yards, but as O'Connell now keeps saying, you got to catch the ball first. But if that's to go back to your 2017 comp of this whole thing, if that's the biggest, like, oh my God, what about the punt returner? Don't fumble, which, you don't want to do it in Chicago. That's a pretty mild concern. And yeah, at the end of the day, the Naylor thing actually might benefit you because going to get Thielen doesn't hurt you one bit. I think he's 35, but he can still run routes. He knows your system. At the end of the day, I think he can push Naylor for the 3 spot now once Jalen's back. And if he doesn't get it, that's fine too. He's back here for a final run. This is probably it for him. So yeah, you got a good point. There's a lot of things of, oh my God, what about that? And it's like, okay, if that's your biggest problem, you're probably in pretty good shape going into the season.
So a lot of fans have brought up the odds for the Vikings to win the Super Bowl. You go over to FanDuel and our partners at FanDuel,
Nice.
and you'll find that the over-under hasn't changed since McCarthy had a good training camp. It's still 8.5. And you'll also find the Green Bay Packers have better Super Bowl odds than the Minnesota Vikings over there at FanDuel. I think that the gambling market is being reasonable in the same way that it was last year in thinking that, hey, Sam Darnold's your quarterback. The guy's never done anything. And I also think that the locals, such as ourselves, who just watched training camp, are also being reasonable, saying, hey, I think that it should be better than that because we've just watched this team in action during training camp the same way we did last year with Sam Darnold. And we said, you know what? That's actually looking pretty darn good. Or the same way that we were on the under in 2018 because things were not going as well as they should have. How confident do you feel? I don't actually know your prediction. Like you're going to have to tell me what your prediction for wins and so forth is. And then you got to give me a percentage of confidence because I haven't moved off mine. I had 11 wins and a playoff win.
Yes.
And then let, Jesus take the wheel from there. But like, that's where I've got it. And my confidence in that going into camp, I would have said is maybe like 40%. Like I'm okay, 11 wins. I think that's right. I think I'm now at like 75% confidence or 80% confidence that that's where the bar should be for this team after seeing camp.
So I have not yet done a confidence ranking like that. I'll be happy to do it. I believe I have put them at 11 wins, which is of course 3 off what they had a year ago, but it's good enough to make the playoffs. And my recurring statement is this: make the playoffs and win a playoff game. It's go time. Like to me, that's where the O'Connell pressure is. Dude's won double-digit games 2 of his 3 years. We know he can win in the regular season. He has summarily got his ass handed to him in the playoffs. The Giants game, they didn't lose huge, but it was a bad loss, especially in retrospect. And then last year, in my opinion, you really had back-to-back playoff games, right? That Detroit game was huge. Would have gotten you by the top seed. And you got your ass kicked, like literally got your ass kicked. It reminded me of was that the 2019 loss to the 49ers in the playoff game?
Yes.
Like you got your butt kicked, literally. And then you went and played the Rams and you got your butt kicked. Your quarterback sacked 9 times. So I've got them at 11 wins. I do think they are tougher now, and they're not just saying that they are. A year ago, and they did start out tougher, but a year ago it was, hey, we're going to have a tougher training camp, and we're going to show you Garrett Bradbury can be an ass whooper. And then the season starts like, oh, that's pretty impressive. And then we got to when it counts in the winter, and it wasn't impressive. So I would put my confidence at the 60%. 60% is probably fair. right now. The division's incredibly tough
Mhm.
and the schedules are not easy. Again, I'll go back to what I said. The only team that I don't understand the infatuation yet is the Bears, because I've got to see more there. And I'm not convinced that Ben Johnson's a great OC, but Matthew, how many guys have we covered who are
A
great
lot.
coordinators and they step into head coaching roles and they're kicking guys out of practice? And these guys are adults and say, bleep you and don't listen to you. So I put my confidence at 60 to 65%, and I put them on 11 wins, a decrease from last year. But I think the most important thing is a playoff win. I want to see them win a playoff game, though. So see, that's where I'm not totally confident yet. He's got to me, that's a big hump to clear. Can you get your team in the playoffs and can you win a playoff game? Because the thing about, you look at who's at fault, and Darnold in Detroit was terrible. I actually think the Rams game, I don't put nearly as much of the Rams loss on Sam. He got sacked 9 times and they were awful.
Yep.
But it's my opinion that when you play in January, it's a different football. And the Vikings and Kevin O'Connell have never been prepared for it previously. So can you go in prepared and play that game? And that, again, it's all coming back to me, play calling too. What are you dialing up? Because what you dial up on October 15th is not necessarily what you can dial up on January 5th.
All right, here's one for you. Here's another fun game for you. Of the Vikings schedule, I want you to name a game that you would say, I'm intrigued. And I want you to name a game where you'd say, I'm scared.
Oh, boy.
And I want you to name a game where you'd say, Bart Scott, can't wait. So I'm intrigued.
Okay.
I'm scared.
Okay.
And can't wait.
Well, I'm going to call up the schedule to make sure that I give this my best possible effort.
Yes. Thank you. I appreciate that. I did not prep you on anything. So
No, that's fine.
This is
That's
something
fine.
that I cooked up a Zulgad special.
I've gone through the schedule a bunch though. So, okay. So I'm intrigued. You know what? There's a great one here. And a year ago, I think this is an I'm scared game. Sunday, November 9th, US Bank Stadium, Baltimore Ravens.
Love that.
I am intrigued because, again, Baltimore, what do they want to do? They want to physically impose their football will on you. And quite frankly, the Vikings at times, especially around that time of year, it's ordinarily where it begins to turn a little bit. The Vikings have had with O'Connell, they've had other teams' will imposed on them. So that to me, I mean, Lamar Jackson, yes, but Harbaugh just has these tough as nails teams. And so I'm super intrigued because do the Will Fries, the Ryan Kellys, who I love. I mean, that guy looks like he'd kick your ass just for fun. And then right.
Yes.
So, the Javon Hargraves, Jonathan Allens, like, do those guys in a game like that make a difference? So that's my I'm intrigued game. Next one, you want I'm scared?
Yeah, I'm scared.
Oh, that's an interesting one because
I can tell you I'm scared.
Well, you know what it is? It's probably before that. It's probably October 19th, Philadelphia.
Okay.
That's
probably not my pick, but I like that.
That's probably an I'm scared one. I'm intrigued by that too. But yeah, that's probably my I'm scared game because that strikes me as a team that could very easily come into your building and win. Not too much rattles the Eagles when the Eagles are playing like they can. I will say that. It's a weird team. Can go very up and down, but that would probably be my I'm scared. What's yours?
Well, actually, I'll just give you all three after you give you the can't wait. I'll just give you all three of mine when you're done. So what's your can't wait?
Oh, my can't wait. The last game, Green Bay Packers again.
Love it.
Green Bay Packers here, flex game with any luck again. It's a primetime game. So there's no Monday night game in week 18. So, and I think it was a Sunday night game last year, right? So yeah, that's my yes, can't wait game. And the finish of the season too. I mean, Christmas Day, are you kidding me? And then here, and then the game against the Packers here, Christmas Day, we got the Vikings and Wolves.
That's pretty cool.
Day. What
a present. What a day.
What a present. So those are my three.
Imagine not loving all sports. Then you would not have as good of a Christmas.
And the Wolves like a 9 too, so you got time to get home.
So my I'm scared game, I'll start with that, is Chargers. It's at the Chargers because they play the Eagles. I think the Vikings, and if you look at historically at US Bank Stadium, how good they've been, anybody comes in, you've got a chance to beat them.
Sure.
Even if the Eagles are better than you at that point, you've got a good chance to beat them because you're you and it's US Bank Stadium. And we saw how they played against the Lions last year. They were one swing pass away from beating them. Or one, I think Addison needed to catch a ball across the middle or run the right route or whatever it was. They needed one more first down to beat the Lions. And then they went to Detroit and got pummeled by 2/3 of that Lions roster. So I think that told a pretty clear story. Going out to LA to face a Jim Harbaugh psychopath team that's going to run 47 times and had a top defense in the league last year. They're a nasty team. They're physical. They drafted a running back who's like Ironhead Hayward or something, only faster. Who would be a recent reference? I guess like he's, Derrick Henry sized almost. O'Marion Hampton. He's just enormous and then fast. It's like, that's tough. They've built up their offensive line. They've got a great quarterback who knows the system. I think the traveling team on Thursday night after playing the super physical Eagles is a nightmare situation. So I am scared of that. As far as I am intrigued, I think I want to go Bengals week 3. I'm just very intrigued by Vikings and Bengals. How does Flores defense match up? Isn't that a JJ McCarthy 322 yards?
That's what I was going to say.
Right.
Score 35 points. The Vikings don't do that a lot, but score 30 plus points, give up 21 and go home and eat dinner.
Exactly. And as far as can't wait, I've never seen Lamar because they played him in 2021 at Baltimore. I believe that's the last time they played him, the time the guy on the sideline pushed somebody for the Ravens, gave him a free first down. And before that, the last time they played Baltimore at home, I think was that Joe Flacco 17, where
we covered it together.
Yeah, that's right. So I really am interested. Just can't wait to see Lamar Jackson versus Brian Flores. And okay, I love your list. Love our list. Last question is, what was your favorite time covering football with me? I have my favorite Zulgadian experience, of which there were hundreds.
I was going to say that's one. I mean, that's so difficult because you got games, you've got moments of, you got the Philadelphia, not debacle, but being stranded there because it was snowing back here. You've got the Minneapolis Miracle, which was, phenomenal. And we were both like, what just happened? I mean, that's the funny thing is, these guys are dialed in up in the press box. We're like, what just happened there? that just happened. Oh my gosh, there's so many, including the bad games when we just sit there and laugh because the football is so bad. And believe it or not, folks, there at least were. It felt more like in the Zim era for a while there. The early 2020s, right? There were some like just dreadful games. But I would have to say it's the Saints game. It's the Miracle because that game also, to go back beyond the Diggs catch, that game was such a great roller coaster and discussion with us because the first half, the Vikings are kicking their ass and we're like, oh my God, this is incredible. And then what I loved, because I think we both agreed completely, was the second half. It wasn't that we were bashing the Vikings. It's like Drew Brees. First of all, Sean Payton figured some stuff out. Credit to him. But the other thing is Drew Brees in this hostile environment. And how many good quarterbacks have we seen wilt in that stadium? Like just wilt, like curl up in a ball in a fetal position. And Drew Brees just starts picking them apart. And I just remember we were both like, it might sound weird, appreciative.
Oh, yes.
Like it's this is quarterbacking. Like this is quarterbacking at the highest quarterbacking level. And then, of course, the play to end it. So I would have to say that just because that game will always stand out as far as the fact that I appreciated that you appreciated that we were both like, this is incredible.
Yes. Yeah. I would love to go back and find the post-game podcast for that one. And that's definitely the best moment. But I think a few things of traveling on the road together. There was the time we got stuck in Philadelphia and we had to go buy socks from a CVS or something. And the other one was we sometimes tried to save a little bit of money on certain trips. So I booked us a hotel in who the hell knows where, Wisconsin. And we show up at this corn town in the middle of nowhere. And there's 2 restaurants. There's a Culver's, and shout out to Culver's. I love them. And then there was a supper club.
Yes.
And it was like, well, we're really hungry. Why don't we just go supper club? And it was like walking into somebody's house,
Yes.
and it was like a 4-hour meal or something. They just kept bringing us stuff.
It
The
was great.
waitress hit on you. It
No,
was
the
a
waiter pinched me.
Oh, that's right. It was a waiter, and
He pinched me in the
that's
hip.
right.
He's
That's
like,
right.
how's that tasting? But the funny thing
That's
is,
right.
the food was phenomenal.
It was
I
incredible.
got like
It
a
was incredible.
prime rib, or I got a steak. I forget what I got. It was incredible. Yeah, you're right.
It was like going into a movie where you
Yes.
somehow wake up in the basement and
Yes.
whatever, zombies or something. That's what I thought was going to happen in that place. Couldn't get the check. There was like one small TV with college football on in the corner that were crying, is that the Fresno State
And
Bulldogs?
there's
Like,
a
what's
bunch of
going on?
townies. The townies were all
Yes,
around
they
drinking
all
their
knew each
beers.
other, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and
But
we were the only out of towners. I forgot. I was trying to remember what the waiter or waitress did to you. The pinch,
the
right?
pinch, the
So
guy
that
pinched
was
me. He's like, how's that tasting? And he
it was
pinched me.
unbelievable
What
though. One of
town
the
was that?
I have no idea.
It
I
wasn't
have
that
no
far from Green Bay,
recollection.
right? Because I don't remember the
Yeah.
drive the next morning being terrible.
Oh, that reminds me. There was also a pretty crazy game in Green Bay that we covered, a tie in
Yeah.
which somebody thought they remembered the way back from Green Bay and drove us. I think it was the tie game,
That
or
was
maybe
me.
it was a different
I
one.
don't
And
remember
then
which one it was, but I definitely got. I didn't pick up 29, and I kept driving a half hour out of the way. I
at
mean,
least,
thank God.
yes.
Thank
Yes.
God I eventually realized that that was bad. The Philadelphia trip though was great because yes, we got stranded despite the fact that it was fine in Philadelphia, but it was snowed back here, and it was, what month was that? January by
Yeah, it
then?
was like 60 degrees in
Yeah.
Philly.
Yeah. Yeah. Philly was gorgeous. So we get stranded there. And the two things I recall about that was, yes, going to buy socks. And by the way, I guess I bought a pair or a pack of women's socks
Yes,
that
they
I
were
wore
lady
forever.
socks.
After. They were
They
fantastic,
were
nicest
really
socks.
comfy.
I
Yeah.
was very upset from then on that guys get bad socks. And I also had to go buy a shirt. So I got an Eagles NFC Championship shirt the day after the game because all the stuff hit the stores, which I still have. But then the other part that was great is I think that was the first time I really met Courtney.
Oh yeah.
And it was in the Ruby Tuesdays. And this was honest to God, like a Netflix show. We only ate at the Ruby Tuesdays. And the great thing
Yes.
about Courtney, at least at the time, was she had about the same demeanor as us. Like
Yes.
she was like a 42-year-old guy. Like she was just like, what's going on? She's just like so unexcited by it. But it seriously it was like a Netflix show. It was great.
I will let you describe Courtney that way. I know exactly what you mean, though. That she fits in the environment.
Yes.
But
She was not like, it wasn't like, oh my God, I'm covering, she's like, hey, what's going on?
yeah, we were all so that was why we ended up at Ruby Tuesdays. You would think, and I remember my wife asking me like, "Why didn't you go to downtown Philly? Why didn't you guys do something cool when you were stranded there?" We were so exhausted from that run from the
Yeah.
Minneapolis Miracle. I see why the Vikings lost. That we were like, I don't know, the best we could do was women's socks and Ruby Tuesdays. That's the best we could do. And
And
we
we
were
were
just so gassed.
And we were staying out, as I recall, near the
Yeah.
stadium and in Philly. And it's great. The stadium's right by the airport, but you're nowhere near, like, you got
Yeah.
to drive into downtown. And so, yeah, everyone else is like, yeah, we're going downtown. We're going to go check out this steakhouse. Right? And we're like, we're just going to go to that salad bar because that Ruby Tuesday salad bar is unbelievable. It's great salad.
Oh man, I do miss going on the road with you, Judd. There is nobody like you. So I appreciate your time and
Thank you.
all the effort that you put into tracking every single pass. And if people have not signed up for your newsletter, I am, I believe, the first paying subscriber.
Yeah, because you helped me launch it.
That's right. That's right. What's the Zulgad on sports? Zulgad ball? What is it?
No, it's still judzulgad.substack.com.
Okay. Okay.
Now, I really should get a domain. I think you
Yeah.
told me about this. I don't know
Yes.
how to do that. I need help with that. So I
Okay.
should
We'll
probably
work on it.
buy a domain because it doesn't cost much. But as of right now, yeah, judzulgad.substack.com. I try to write about all sports, but this time of year, it's mostly football.
It's football. Thanks for your time, Jed.
Thank you. It's fun.
Football.